Welcome to Learn English with Podcast. Today, our amazing hosts, Luca and Maria, are here to take you through another exciting episode. Luca, Maria, over to you.
Ever get that feeling like your mind is just racing with all these plans and dreams? You can almost taste success, but then actually getting started feels like trying to wade through, I don't know, quicksand or something.
Oh, yeah.
You've got these incredible goals, this vision of your future self is so crystal clear, but taking that first step, or even the next one, or even just keeping that momentum going, it feels like impossibly hard.
It's so real. And it's actually like such a fundamental part of, I think, the human experience. This desire for something big paired with this real struggle to actually, do what it takes to get there.
Yeah.
And if that feels familiar, if you're someone who, sometimes feels like those big dreams are kind of miles away from your day-to-day reality, well, this deep dive, this is for you.
It really is. We are diving deep, deep down into that space between, wanting something and actually taking the steps to get it.
Right.
And we've been looking at a whole bunch of different perspectives, different angles on how to close that gap. We found everything from really practical ways to kind of break down what needs to be done to these super interesting shifts in how we even think about our motivation, like what really drives us. We're really trying to find that key, that thing that unlocks your motivation and turns, that drive into actual progress.
That's like, how do we get out of our own way?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And before we get too far, if you are liking these deep dives and you appreciate, the energy and effort that goes into putting all this together, and honestly, like a lot of heart goes into this, so just take a second, hit that like button, subscribe, and maybe even share this with someone who you think would find it useful. Their support really does mean a lot and helps us keep this going. Okay, so let's get into it. This whole ambition versus action puzzle, you know the feeling, right? You're comfy, maybe scrolling in bed, and you've got this awesome picture in your head of what you want to achieve. Like launch that project, finally master that skill, get in shape, you can see it. But then the alarm goes off, or you have that free hour, and suddenly that bed, it's like a black hole of comfort.
It's so true.
Or you sit down at your computer ready to work on that goal, and then blink, hours have disappeared into, I don't know, a YouTube spiral or something.
Right.
Does any of this sound familiar?
Oh, it resonates with so many people. And what's really interesting is that this isn't necessarily like some kind of personal failing. It's not that you're inherently lazy or anything like that.
Yeah.
It often comes down to the scale of what we're trying to achieve, right?
Yeah.
That mountaintop we want to reach. It just seems so incredibly far away and high up that we just feel almost frozen. Like we can't even take that first step on the path.
Right.
It's like our minds, they love the idea of those big wins, but they really resist what feels like a massive, daunting undertaking.
That makes a lot of sense. It's like that, what's that analogy? Running a marathon. If someone just told you to go run 26 miles right now without any training, you'd probably just be like, nope, not doing it.
Absolutely.
Our big goals can feel just as impossible.
Yeah.
So like practically speaking, how do we actually get ourselves moving? What are some things we can do, some concrete things to overcome that initial stuck feeling?
One of the simplest but most powerful strategies is to break down those big, scary tasks into teeny tiny, almost ridiculously manageable steps.
Okay.
Think about climbing a mountain. You don't just magically teleport to the top.
Right.
You climb it one step at a time.
One step at a time.
Our goals are the same way. So you got to distill it down to the absolute minimum action needed to make even a tiny bit of progress.
I love that. We saw some examples that were almost like laughably small, but really smart.
Yeah.
Instead of thinking, ugh, I need to write this whole report, the first step becomes, I'm just going to write one sentence.
Love it.
Or if you want to exercise more, it's not about that whole hour at the gym. It's about putting on your shoes.
Exactly.
That tiny action can be surprisingly effective at getting things rolling.
Yeah, it reduces that feeling of overwhelm.
Mm-hmm.
And another really interesting technique is what's called the past tense trick. And the basic idea is that you write about your day, or even just a specific task, as if you've already done it successfully.
Okay, I like this. So instead of having a to-do list item that says, work on presentation for 2 hours, I would write something like, I focused and worked on the presentation for 2 hours, making significant progress.
Exactly.
So by writing as if it's already done, it's kind of like you're pre-experiencing the success.
Yeah, like it's almost like giving your brain a sneak peek of that positive outcome. Yeah. And it can make the work feel a little bit less threatening.
I see. So less about predicting the future and more about focusing on the action. And how good it'll feel to have it done.
Yeah.
We saw an example where someone's typical to-do list, like respond to emails, outline project, exercise, call client,
Right.
was reframed as, I efficiently responded to all important emails. I created a solid outline for the project. I had a great workout and feel energized. I had a productive call with the client. Like, that already sounds so much better.
Doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. But could this also lead to feeling like disappointed if things don't actually go that well?
That's a really good point. And it's less about, perfectly predicting exactly what's going to happen and more about just focusing your mind on the intention, the action, and that feeling of accomplishment. And if a whole day in the past tense feels like, whoa, that's a bit much,
Yeah.
you can definitely start smaller. Just focus on one key task and write it as if it's already done. Like, I completed the first crucial section of my project today, and I feel a real sense of momentum.
I love that.
Yeah.
Another thing we kept seeing, which is so simple but powerful, is this idea of the 2-minute rule.
Oh, yeah.
Basically, the biggest hurdle with any task is often just starting it.
Oh, yeah.
So you make this commitment to yourself to work on something for just 2 minutes. 2 minutes, that's it.
That's it.
So if you want to read more, just read one page for 2 minutes. If you want to tidy up, just organize one small area for 2 minutes.
Yeah, the genius of that is it lowers that initial barrier so much. It's like it almost feels silly not to start when the commitment is so tiny.
Right.
And what often happens is that once you've done those 2 minutes, you kind of naturally just keep going.
You get into it.
Yeah, you get into it. It's like overcoming that static friction. Once something is in motion, it tends to stay in motion.
Exactly. So, okay, we've managed to trick ourselves into getting started.
Right.
Now, how do we keep the momentum going? How do we keep things from just fizzling out after that initial burst of, enthusiasm?
One really interesting idea we came across is to really try to make the work itself more enjoyable.
Okay.
Like shift it from being a chore to something that feels a little bit closer to like play.
Yeah.
Because if a task feels boring and monotonous, we naturally want to avoid it.
Right.
But if you can find ways to make it fun or at least more engaging, you're way more likely to stick with it.
That makes sense. And we saw some really fun practical examples, like if you have to clean, put on your favorite music, and suddenly you're not just cleaning, you're having a dance party while you tidy up.
Yes, exactly.
For studying, maybe you set a timer for a short burst, like 15 minutes, and challenge yourself to see how much you can learn in that time, kind of like a mental sprint.
I love that.
And of course, there's always the classic reward system, like a little break to do something you enjoy after you finish a section of work.
All of these little tweaks, they can really change how we see a task.
Yeah.
Instead of it being this thing we have to suffer through, it becomes associated with more positive feelings.
Okay, now this next concept I thought was super fascinating, the unfinished task effect. It's also sometimes called the Zeigarnik effect.
Oh, interesting.
Can you tell us a bit more about that?
So basically, our brains tend to remember tasks we haven't finished much more clearly than the ones we have.
Oh, really?
Yeah, think about that feeling you get when you start a project and then have to set it aside. It often stays with you, almost like it's demanding your attention until it's done.
Ugh, yes, totally. It's like, even if I've ignored something for weeks, the minute I try to relax, my brain's like, hey, remember that thing you didn't finish?
Exactly. And it's because our brains have this built-in need for closure. An unfinished task creates a kind of like mental tension.
Right.
That keeps it top of mind.
Okay, so how can we use that to our advantage?
The trick is to shift the focus from needing to complete a task to simply starting it.
Oh, interesting.
Because once you start something, even just a little bit, that Zeigarnik effect kicks in, and your brain starts nudging you to finish it. So the first goal becomes just to get started, not necessarily to do the whole thing at once.
That is like a mental hack. It's so much easier to convince myself to just write one paragraph of an email than the whole thing.
Right.
But knowing that my brain's going to keep reminding me about it until it's done is actually pretty motivating.
It is, right.
So we've talked about getting started, staying engaged, and even using our brain's quirks to help us. But it's also super important to make sure we're actually working on the right things, right?
Absolutely.
It's so easy to get caught up in just being busy, but not actually making progress on the things that really matter.
It's the classic busy but not productive trap.
Yes. Like days when I'm constantly checking emails, organizing files, jumping between notifications, and then by the end of the day, I realize I haven't done anything towards my actual goals.
It's so easy to fall into that. And that's where prioritization comes in. It's about making conscious decisions about what tasks are truly the most important.
Right.
And then focusing your time and energy on those instead of getting swept away by things that feel urgent but might not actually be that important.
So being more strategic with our efforts, working smarter, not just harder.
Exactly. And making sure that the energy we're spending is actually moving us towards our big goals.
Now, sometimes the reason we avoid starting or actually making progress on things that matter isn't just feeling overwhelmed by the size of the task.
Yeah.
It can also be because of, a fear of failure or being a bit of a perfectionist.
Yes. That fear can be so paralyzing.
It really can. I know I've put things off because I was scared of not being good enough right away or messing things up.
It's so common. One suggestion to help with this is to actually choose a hobby or an activity where you specifically don't care about being good.
Okay.
Like something you do just for fun, purely for enjoyment, where the whole point is the process, not the outcome. It could be anything, really.
So getting more comfortable with not being amazing at something right away?
Exactly. Embracing the learning process with all its, stumbles and imperfections without the pressure of having to be perfect.
It's like retraining your brain to value the effort and enjoyment of learning over that need to be a master from the start.
Exactly. Now, let's talk a bit more about mindset.
Okay.
We talked about the past tense trick earlier, but there are other really great ways to adjust our thinking to close that gap between ambition and action. One powerful technique is to think like your future successful self.
I like this. So instead of getting stuck in, procrastination or self-doubt, you imagine that future version of yourself, the one who has already achieved your goals, and you ask yourself, what would that person do in this situation?
Exactly. So if one of your goals is to be healthier and fitter, instead of debating whether to skip your workout, you ask yourself, would a healthy and fit person skip their workout today?
That's a great point.
This shift in perspective can help your brain align your actions with your long-term goals and the person you want to become.
It's like aligning your actions with the identity you're trying to build.
Yes, exactly. You could even take it a step further and actually write down your current daily routine.
Okay.
And then imagine what the daily routine of your ideal successful self would look like.
I see.
Then you can start to identify small changes, small habits you could implement now to close the gap between where you are and where you want to be.
That's a really cool way to make those future goals feel more real, more tangible. It's about embodying the mindset and the habits of that person you want to be, starting with small, practical changes.
Yeah, I love that. And another crucial element in turning ambition into action is time.
Time.
Just stating a general goal isn't usually enough. Attaching a timeline to it makes it feel way more real and achievable.
Okay.
And then taking that even further is this process called reverse engineering your goals.
Reverse engineering. I'm intrigued. What's that all about?
So it starts with your long-term vision, say something you want to achieve in the next 10 years.
Right.
Then you break that big goal down into smaller, manageable steps, each with a deadline.
I see.
So what milestones do you need to hit in the next 6 months to be on track for that 10-year vision?
Okay.
Then what about quarterly progress markers? What are your key monthly targets? And finally, what are the weekly and even daily habits that, if you do them consistently, will lead to those targets?
So it's like building a roadmap, but starting from the destination and working back to where you are now. Like if my 10-year goal is to have a successful side business that's making a certain amount of money,
Right.
I would first break that down into yearly income targets, then quarterly targets, and then figure out what specific actions, developing new skills, creating products, marketing, what do I need to do consistently each week, even each day, to hit those targets.
Exactly. Reverse engineering takes those big, overwhelming goals and makes them feel much more achievable because you have this clear step-by-step path of smaller tasks with deadlines.
Yeah.
It transforms a vague ambition into a series of concrete milestones.
We've talked a lot about planning and mindset, but something that really stuck with me is how important it is to actually execute.
Oh, absolutely.
You can have all the knowledge and the best plans in the world, but if you don't actually do anything, nothing changes.
Action is everything.
Yeah.
Even if you don't feel 100% ready or perfectly prepared, that's where the real learning and improvement happens. You'll probably never feel completely ready to start something big, so the key is to just take that first step and then adjust as you go.
And along with taking action, there's the power of consistency.
Oh, yes.
Even if it's just small, consistent effort.
Absolutely.
We talked about the 80-20 rule, where often 20% of our effort produces 80% of our results.
Right.
A simple example is just spending a few minutes the night before to write a to-do list.
Yeah.
That tiny effort can make you so much more focused and productive the next day.
I love that.
And we also revisited the just do it for 5 minutes technique, which is a great way to get over that initial resistance and build a habit of consistency.
Consistency is truly the key. Small actions, done regularly over time, have this compounding effect that leads to real change. It's much more effective than those sporadic bursts of effort that are hard to keep up.
Lastly, we touched on the impact of our environment and the people we surround ourselves with.
Oh, yeah.
It's so important to be aware of the kind of energy and perspectives you're exposed to and to focus on your own progress rather than letting other people's negativity hold you back.
It's true. The people around us, our social network, can either lift us up or drag us down.
Yeah.
Actively building a supportive network and minimizing exposure to negativity can make a world of difference in staying motivated and taking action.
So to wrap this all up for you, if you're someone with big ambitions and dreams, and you sometimes find it hard to turn those into consistent action, you are definitely not alone.
Not at all.
But the things we've explored in this deep dive, they give you some really practical tools to close that gap between wanting and actually doing.
Right.
By breaking down those big, scary goals into tiny, manageable steps. By shifting your mindset in a way that works for you. And by focusing on taking consistent, even small, actions, you can absolutely move forward and start making real progress.
That feeling of being ambitious but also feeling stuck, it's a human thing, but it doesn't have to be a permanent state. These strategies give you a toolkit to understand your own tendencies, overcome that initial resistance, and actually start making those ambitions a reality.
And on that note, here's a final thought to leave you with. Think about that one ambition that feels most important to you right now. What's one tiny, almost ridiculously easy step you can take today, not tomorrow, not next week, but today, that will move you even just a little bit closer to that goal? Take that step, and then see what happens.
I love that.
Imagine this. It's Sunday evening. You re-sprawled on your couch, scrolling through Instagram, and a wave of inspiration hits. You've been meaning to learn a new language, write that novel, or start that online business for months. Tonight, it feels different. Tonight, you're really going to do it. You envision yourself effortlessly conversing in fluent French, holding a finished manuscript in your hands, or watching your online store generate passive income. You re-buzzing with excitement. You open a new document. You start researching courses. You even tell a friend about your grand plans. The next morning, however, that spark has dimmed. The alarm blares, and the thought of actually sitting down to study, write, or build a website feels like climbing Everest in your pajamas. You hit snooze, promising yourself you'll start later. Later turns into tomorrow, and tomorrow into next week. The language app remains unopened, the blank document a taunting reminder of your abandoned ambition, and the business idea languishes in a forgotten browser tab. This is the frustrating reality of being ambitious, but lazy. We all know this feeling, the internal battle between our grand visions and our resistance to the actual work required to achieve them. It's not a lack of intelligence or creativity. It's a gap between our desires and our execution. The first step to bridging this gap is brutal honesty. Acknowledge that you're not just busy or tired. You're procrastinating, and you're letting small distractions derail your big dreams. Don't frame it as a character flaw, but as a habit that can be changed. Start by breaking down your overwhelming goals into tiny, manageable steps. Instead of learn French, aim for spend 15 minutes on Duolingo today. Instead of write a novel, commit to writing one paragraph. This shrinks the task from a daunting mountain to a series of achievable hills. Celebrate each small victory, even if it's just ticking off a task on your to-do list. This creates a positive feedback loop, reinforcing your progress and motivating you to keep going. Another key is to understand your triggers. What are the distractions that pull you away from your goals? Is it social media? Is it the allure of a clean house over a messy project? Is it the fear of failure masquerading as research? Identify these triggers and create a system to minimize them. Use website blockers, set specific times for social media, or create a dedicated workspace free from distractions. If you find yourself procrastinating under the guise of research, set a time limit. Give yourself an hour to gather information, and then force yourself to start taking action. Furthermore, recognize that perfectionism is often a sneaky form of laziness. The fear of not doing something perfectly can paralyze you into doing nothing at all. Remember that progress is better than perfection. Start with a rough draft, a messy prototype, a flawed first attempt. You can always refine and improve later. Embrace the good enough mentality, especially in the initial stages of a project. Another effective strategy is to build accountability. Find a friend, a mentor, or an online community who can hold you accountable for your goals. Share your progress, celebrate your wins, and ask for support when you re-struggling. Knowing that someone else is watching can provide a powerful motivation to stay on track. You can also use tools like habit trackers or productivity apps to visualize your progress and keep yourself accountable. Time management is crucial. Schedule dedicated time for your goals, just like you would for an important appointment. Don't rely on motivation to strike. Create a routine and stick to it. Even if you don't feel like it, show up and put in the work. The more you do this, the more you build momentum and develop a habit of consistent effort. Experiment with different time management techniques, such as the Pomodoro technique, to find what works best for you. Moreover, cultivate self-compassion. Be kind to yourself when you slip up. Laziness is a human tendency, not a moral failing. Don't beat yourself up for procrastinating. Simply acknowledge it, learn from it, and get back on track. Practice mindfulness to become more aware of your thoughts and feelings, and learn to manage them without judgment. Finally, remember that ambition without action is just a daydream. True success lies in the consistent, persistent effort you put in, even when you don't feel like it. Embrace the journey, celebrate the small wins, and learn to enjoy the process of growth. It's not about being perfect, it's about being persistent. Turn your ambitious but lazy narrative into an ambitious and diligent reality. Your future self will thank you.
Thank you for watching. Your journey to better English and unstoppable confidence starts here. Like, share, and subscribe. Let's keep growing together. See you in the next video, champion.